Yo, what is going on with you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to Diddy could get 11 years, and I haven't been paying attention to this Diddy situation. Of course, I've heard the stories, house raided, baby lotion, freak offs, the diddler. I'm so far from what's actually going on, but let's get into this video.
Now it looks like Diddy could be cooked, as he could possibly get 11 years behind bars. In a few days, Diddy will be officially sentenced, and ahead of that, there have been some big updates I want to share with you guys. Prosecutors are now saying that Diddy deserves at least 11 years in prison, while his legal team is still pushing for a much lighter sentence. And if you've been following this case, you'll remember that back in late August, his lawyers actually tried to get the 2 convictions he was facing. They tried to get him thrown out, and they also tried to push for a new trial. Their whole argument was that these specific convictions weren't meant for cases like this. And now, ahead of his October 3rd sentencing, which is in a few days, the prosecution is firing back, and they're saying that Diddy doesn't deserve a new trial at all, that they have more than enough evidence to support his conviction in the first place. On top of that, prosecutors are recommending that he deserves at least 11 years in prison when he's sentenced this Friday for the 2 counts of transportation he was found guilty of. And one of the biggest points prosecutors
What do we have here? Federal prosecutors say Combs was violent, abusive, and left victims in fear. So while he was acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy charges, they say he still deserves at least 11 years following his July conviction on 2 counts of transportation for the purpose of prostitution.
Victims have been left in fear, and that includes Cassie, which we'll get into that in a moment. Their recommendation comes just days after Diddy's defense argued the exact opposite. His team is pushing for a sentence of no more than 14 months behind bars, basically saying he should only serve about the time he's already done. And prosecutors have made it very clear. They're saying that Diddy was violent, abusive, and left his victims living in fear. And even though he was acquitted of the bigger charges like sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, they're still pushing for at least 11 years in prison off of the 2 transportation convictions from July. They also argue that Diddy held all the power over the people he transported, especially Cassie Ventura. According to prosecutors, they're bringing up the hotel security footage, which all of us...
Yo, when I saw that footage, I know it was going to be downhill for Diddy. Because let's think about this as professionals. 1, somebody was sitting on that footage for a long period of time. 2, you don't do something like that unless you're getting ready to create some big narrative. And that's exactly what happened.
At this point, have probably seen, showing Diddy, doing all the things that he did to Cassie in that video, right? And they're using that as proof to show how abusive he really was. And to go even further, they want the sentence to reflect what they call decades of unchecked violence, decades of psychological,
came at that with an emotional angle
that he's inflicted. On the flip side, Diddy's defense, they're calling this recommendation draconian. Now, Cassie has also stepped in. She's asking the judge to weigh her suffering when deciding Diddy's sentence. Cassie, who was not only his former girlfriend but also the star witness at the federal trial, wrote that the court should consider the many lives that Sean Combs, Diddy, has upended with his abuse and control when handing down the punishment for his prostitution-related convictions. And this part is big because we all know that her testimony has been central from the beginning. It's what helped prosecutors build their case that Diddy was running a criminal enterprise that committed and covered up sex trafficking. In a letter to the court, Cassie went even deeper. She wrote, "While the jury did not seem to understand or believe that I engaged in freak-offs because of the force and coercion the defendant used against me, I know that is the truth, and his sentence should reflect the reality of the evidence and my lived experience as a victim." So a lot of this back and forth is happening because ahead of sentencing, especially in a case of this magnitude.
Man, I saw some screenshot text from Cassie talking about, I can't wait for the next freak off. Man, what?
Can play a part. And Diddy's legal team has been
all a crazy card
to make
game.
sure that he gets the least amount of time possible. One of the bigger strategies has been gathering statements from prominent figures in the entertainment world, people who could vouch for his character. And dozens of supporters have now filed letters to the judge on Diddy's behalf. And yeah, we're talking very big names, everyone from his own mother to rappers like Young Miami. I'm sure you guys know who that is. She is a part of the City Girls, right? They've all come forward to ask for leniency. Diddy's sister wrote to the court, "Yes, Sean has made mistakes, serious ones." And his mother added, "Unfortunately, my son has made some terrible mistakes in his life." The word mistakes is interesting because some people will see it as minimizing his actions because these were actions. Others look at it as simply acknowledgement of his flaws. But either way, right, it stands out that this is happening so close to his sentencing. Now, most famously, Young Miami, who dated Diddy for about 2 years, also sent in a statement, and what she wrote caught a lot of people off guard. So Young Miami actually ended up vouching for Diddy. She told the court that Diddy is not a danger or a threat to the community and that his kids still need him. She described him as a loving, genuine, supportive, and always encouraging.
She threw everybody off script. This was what she was supposed to send to him. Oh, man.
He motivated me, believed in me, and helped me grow both personally and professionally, she stated. Now, Young Miami actually got a lot of criticism for her letter, and that's for obvious reasons, regardless of the fact that she dated him. At the end of the day, she's still a woman, and I'm sure you guys know that women have been very outspoken when it comes to this whole situation with Diddy. So even though prosecutors are pushing for these 11 years, there are also a lot of people who are invested in seeing Diddy back out on the streets. Now, a lot of these people, they got business ties with Diddy, so it's not surprising that they'd speak up on his behalf, but the prosecution isn't backing down. And also what's interesting is that at first they were only pushing for about 51 to 63 months. Now suddenly it's at least 11 years. Some people might see this as a strategic move. Maybe they wanted the defense to let their guard down. I don't know, but what I do know is that it shows how high the stakes really are. And you better believe that both, sides are in constant communication behind the scenes. Now, 11 years is a lot for someone like Diddy, who's been balling since the 90s, okay? He's been rich since the 90s, right? Before all this, he was untouchable, one of the most powerful figures in music. And honestly, I'm not convinced that he's going to get the full-time prosecutors are pushing for. Because remember, we all thought that he might have gone down for, the worst charges. But he didn't. He was found not guilty on all 3 of them. And now he's only being held accountable for the 2 lesser charges. So the question is he actually going to get 11 years? I'm not sure. I'm just not really convinced. What I do know is that prosecutors are applying a lot of pressure right now. They understand that perception ahead of sentencing can play a huge role, especially in a case this public where so many people want to see Diddy be held accountable. So whatever happens on October 3rd, it's going to send a message. The only question is, what will that message be?
I have one more video that I wanted to watch in regards to this situation here. All right, so here we go with the next video. Diddy, 50 months in prison. What is that? 4 years?
Diddy has officially been sentenced to 50 months in prison. The judge also hit him with a $500,000 fine and 5 years of supervised release. And because he's been in custody since September 2024, he'll get credit for time served. I want to have a conversation with you guys about this Diddy verdict. This video won't be too long. I'll go over the general stuff today, and then on Sunday, I'll drop a more in-depth breakdown of what happened before, during, and after the sentencing. So back in July, a New York jury acquitted Diddy of the most serious charges he was facing, racketeering and sex trafficking, but convicted him on 2 counts of transporting former girlfriends for prostitution. Heading into the sentencing, prosecutors asked for about 11 years, while the defense pushed for just 14 months. Basically time served, which meant Diddy would have walked free on the spot. Diddy's team argued he's not a danger. They highlighted his childhood trauma, his struggles with drug addiction, and the work he's done while detained. They even played an 11-minute video of him with his kids and while he was doing philanthropy work in the community. On top of that, his children spoke in court asking the judge to show mercy. Outside of family, he had other advocates speaking up, including a Miami pastor, who told the judge, "Give him to us and we won't let you down." The pastor said no amount of time
Oh, man.
behind bars would change Diddy's condition and that he needed an opportunity to redeem himself. Now, interestingly enough, this was also the first time Diddy himself actually spoke in court. He apologized to Cassie and another woman known as Jane Doe, called his past actions disgusting, shameful, and sick, and admitted he had lost his ways. In other words, he got lost in the sauce, and he blamed drugs for fueling his behavior, begged for mercy, and promised he'd never be violent again. The prosecution pushed back hard, saying Diddy minimized the abuse, that his victims are still living with the negative impact he made on them, and urged the court to see this as way more than just transportation for sex. When the judge spoke, he called Cassie Ventura and Jane brave survivors who gave a voice to women who feel powerless. Now, when the judge, Aaron Subramanian, was about to make a decision, he spoke on how he considered Diddy's influence and past good work, pointing out that Diddy has inspired communities, particularly black and brown communities worldwide, and said he was even impressed with the work he's done while locked up. But he also made it clear, Diddy abuses power and control over women he claimed to love. The judge also noted his entire history, from the murder of his father, to his family ties, to his achievements. But at the end of the day, he said accountability had to come first. And with that, the sentence was handed down. 50 months in prison, 4 years and 2 months. Along with the 50 months in prison, he was also fined $500,000 and has also been ordered 5 years of supervised release. The key here is that Diddy will get credit for time served. Since he's been behind bars since September 2024, He's already served about 13 months of that 50. That means his projected release date is late 2028,
Okay.
probably around November or December. However, keep in mind, for anyone who doesn't know, especially my international viewers, inmates can earn what's called good time credit. Basically, if they follow the rules, they can shave up to 54 days of their sentence each year. So with that in play, Diddy could potentially be released a little earlier than late 2028. What a ride this has been. This has easily been one of the most covered cases in hip-hop in a while. For a lot of people online, this has been treated like pure entertainment. The memes, the jokes about baby oil, the freak-offs, but we can't forget reality. Most notably Cassie, who was in a relationship with Diddy for over 10 years, was one of the women who testified. Cassie went through things that no woman, or any person for that matter, should ever have to go through. And it's not just about her. There are multiple other women who came forward. All of them were negatively impacted by Diddy's actions and how he decided to move as a man. I think a lot of the sensationalism around this case clouded just how serious it really was. There's a reason why Diddy was initially facing life in prison, and even after being acquitted of the worst charges, he was still looking at 20 years on the 2 counts he was convicted of, and now he's been sentenced to 50 months. What credit for time served? To me, that feels like a slap in the face to the people who've suffered because of him. A slap in the face to survivors of sexual assault, men or women, who know how hard it is to stand up against someone powerful. Because make no mistake, Diddy was and is a man with extreme power and wealth. He used his fame, his money, and his position to control the people around him in the worst way possible. Yes, he changed a lot of lives for the better as well. He put people on. He invested into the culture and his own community. That's real, but at the same time, he used those riches and fame to exploit and abuse people, including someone he claimed to love. It's sad to say that the legal system doesn't really protect victims like that. And in this case, I don't think that 50 months is anywhere close to enough for the pain and suffering Diddy caused. However, Diddy could have, of course, not been held accountable for the more serious 3 counts since he was acquitted. So I guess in a lot of ways, the 50 months does make sense. Overall, though, I don't know what kind of message this sends, but I know it's not a good one. And when Diddy eventually walks out of prison, it's going to be a reminder to the people he hurt that justice wasn't on their side.
And that is the Diddy situation in a nutshell. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Every day you guys have a choice. Choose growth. It's ATM, and I'm signing out. Deuces.